Joey, fine. We just got done talking about Ole Miss, but now we got another team that's kind of more now on a national stage. I think everybody's kind of been keeping an eye on Ohio State, even though they played Marshall last week. They haven't really played any tough opponents. Joe, what are your thoughts going into this week? Ohio State takes on Michigan State, who had a really tough loss last week to Boston College.
Talk about hilarious stats that we just mentioned with Ole Miss. 552 yards per game, 8.6 yards per play. They're only allowing 180 yards per game, 3 yards per play to their opponents. Again, another team that has not played anybody. There has not been a test for Ohio State. And it's kind of funny to look at this. This is the Big Ten version of Kentucky. Talk about a parallel that we have here with some experienced teams that are at the top of their conferences that had some big portal ads. That's what Ohio State is this week going up against Michigan State. Michigan State is really underrated on defense. Aiden Childs has flashed a ton of positive things, but is just not there as a passer with some of the poor decisions that he's making, and especially the ones that he made against Boston College. But right now, they have 15 sacks on the season. Jordan Turner, Chris Bogle have been dominant, 3 sacks apiece each. Turner has 6 tackles for loss and leading the team in tackles with 22. Jordan Hall at linebacker, who's a sophomore, is a very gifted player, former 4-star recruit. That defense is good. If Ohio State has any deficiencies on offense, it's going to get shown in this game. I don't think this is upset watch, but if Ohio State has any problems, we're going to be talking about them in the recap show if this game ends up being somehow close.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with you. Boston College ran for 193 yards last week. There was some abusing that was going on in that game. Now, I understand that Castellanos, did some things with his legs. Even though he took some sacks, you're right. Michigan State was able to put on some pressure. I'm with you on all of that. Joe, they still ran. The net rushing yards that they would have had if you took sacks out, Joe, would have been close to 220. So I look at this Ohio State team and say to myself, hey, man, give number 1 the football. Give Henderson the football. I know that you have really good receivers. I'm not saying that you don't, because I think a couple of them can't have the potential to go off this weekend. Even though I agree that Michigan State's a little bit better on defense and maybe some anticipated that they would be.
That was my main point.
Yeah, the problem that I have here with this is that Boston College does not have the talent that Ohio State does. Now, I don't know if Ohio State will be looking forward to something. I don't know. What I do know is that the strengths for Ohio State and the talent that they have on offense is the weaknesses that we saw last week against Boston College for Michigan State. And I look at Boston College last week. Bill O'Brien, look, man, people poo-poo on Bill O'Brien. It's ironic that he's the one kind of giving a blueprint necessarily to beat Michigan State when he was supposed to be the OC for Ohio State this year. I know that they have a litany of receivers at Ohio State, but I look at Lewis Bond last weekend for Boston College. Joe, they completed 10 passes, was Castellanos. 6 of them went to Lewis Bond for 102 yards and a touchdown. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka. Joe, I think they're about to eat. I'm going to say this. I think it's about to be a blowout. And you know how I am very conservative on saying things like that. I'm not this is going to be a blowout guy. But I look at this game and just say, I just don't think Michigan State is ready. And Aiden Childs keeps turning the football over, and that worries me. I think he's a really good runner. Joe, Aiden Childs can make this game interesting in this aspect. He gets some legs running like he did last week. This is going to get interesting. But Joe, him throwing the football and those 3 bad turnovers in the air, I just can't, man. I think this one's going to get ugly pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's definitely a setting for a young team to make a ton of mistakes. And to be clear, I'm just pointing out the strengths for Michigan State. For any Ohio State fans, are going to be quick to hop in the comments and say that I'm calling for an upset or a close game here. Merely saying that if your offensive line's not buttoned down, you could give up pressures that you weren't expected to give up because their defensive line has been so good to this point. But I don't disagree
with you. They're great at pass rush.
Yeah,
but Joe, again, I just want to make a very big emphasis.
I know. I'm not disagreeing with that. I know. But 15 sacks this point in the season is an elite statistic.
Here's the
Like
thing
that's an elite statistic to have.
Joe,
this
they have
far.
4 really good pass rushers. Okay, like they do on their defensive line, brother. They couldn't stop a nosebleed with a tampon.
Yeah.
Okay, like I mean,
again, I'm not disagreeing with that. I agree with you though that this game it's likely going to be a blowout. This is a setting for a young quarterback who's still figuring things out and made silly mistakes, back-breaking mistakes that took them out of a game that they frankly should have won. There was also that really bad special teams play on the kick return that was just a stupid fumble. That was a game that their defense was winning them the football game in spurts that Aiden Childs really killed them. He is going to be, I think, in 2 years, in a year, is going to be a great player in the Big Ten. And you're seeing those flashes, why he was so hyped up. But the decision-making's not there. Latham Ransom, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, all those guys back there are going to make plays on the football. If you take one risk that you're unsure about, you're going to regret it. 3 interceptions last week could be, would be 5 against this Ohio State defense if he's not making good decisions.
Joe, I don't want to say that there's not a path for Michigan State to win. Look, man, Aiden Childs had 9 carries for 70 yards last week, and that wasn't missed.
Great runner.
Great runner. And I got to be real with you. They can make this game interesting early. They can. I think they got to take a page of the playbook. I'm going to keep saying this, out of their opponents or our biggest rivals, and that being Michigan. Look, man, line up and try to run the football. If you're getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust, look, man, it's your only option, Joe, because you're right. That secondary is about to eat. Joe, and here's, again, I think those receivers are about to eat. Let me ask you this before we wrap up this segment. Is there anything you want to see from this passing game from Ohio State this week with Will Howard? Is there anything? Because I know, look, we've discussed about him a lot. Is there anything that you haven't seen that you wanted to see from him so far this season?
I don't think we've seen any of their elaborate wrinkles in the passing attack, but they are taking shots. Like they are not being afraid to go after opposing team secondaries.
Regardless if it's no opponents or he's hit. I mean, he's been highly efficient, dude.
He's hitting those shots. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka have been phenomenal. So to that point, there's not really anything that I still need to see. It's just you're in this situation against a team that's going to pin their ears back and come after you because that's what they do best. They're going to hope that you're in those passing situations, that they can generate pressures, maybe create some turnovers, get as many sacks as they possibly can. This is a situation where you need to protect well. I would love to see if Ohio State, if that offensive line, the experience that they're bringing back, if they can keep this pass rushing unit at bay, I'm going to feel pretty good. I'm going to feel pretty good that this Ohio State offensive line is going to play great against Oregon and against Michigan, which will be tough matchups down the road.
This kid, Lewis Bond, man, had 73% of the Boston College's passing attack. Just saying.
Well, they don't have many receivers.
This kid's Lewis Bond from Boston College. You better keep your eyes on him. All right.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.